Content warning. This episode includes discussion of sensitive topics, including sexual assault. Listener discretion is advised. Hey, crazy, amazing humans. So most people will know our guest today as Gretl, the smallest child in one of the most beloved films ever made, The Sound of Music. And I know I sure do, and I'm such a big fan. I just love that film. And if you are as retro obsessed as I am, you'll love knowing that she went on to be in shows like The Brady Bunch, The Waltons, My Three Sons, Lost in Space, and Lassie, and on, so much more. So for sure, we're going to have a fascinating conversation with Kym today about her experience on the Sound of Music set, as well as her many roles over the years.
Right. But there is much more to her story than her acting credits. Our guest, Kym Karath, experienced early fame, yes, but she also faced deeply painful chapters and many challenges. But Kym is not easily daunted.
No, she's not.
Even when her newborn son suffered a devastating illness and the life that she had imagined was rewritten overnight. But her resilience and strength continues to shine through. I'm Jefferson Denham.
And I'm Katrina Carlson, and this is the Crazy Amazing Humans podcast.
I want you to feel, I want you to feel something crazy, crazy, amazing.
Welcome to the Crazy Amazing Humans podcast, everyone, where we discover the powerful stories behind the people who use their time, talent, and resources to make a meaningful and positive difference in the world. And I'm so excited today to have our guest, the lovely and talented Kym Karath. Kym, welcome to the Crazy Amazing Humans podcast. We're so happy to have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
It's just amazing to have you here. Millions of people have around the world first met you as Gretl in The Sound of Music, but you were in films before that. I mean, what do you mean? I think you started films at age 3. What's happening?
You know, like you do. Oh, late bloomer. Why'd you wait till 3?
A real slacker. It's true. I was discovered at my father's restaurant. My father had a restaurant at Melrose and Vine, on the corner of Melrose and Vine. And I had no aspirations to perform, although I was a natural performer. I had an older brother and sister, and they were all the audience I needed. Because I grew up singing and dancing. They were very musical. My whole family was musical. So, you know, my idea of fun was to perform for them or take care of all my dolls. So I didn't need the outside world. And when I was approached, and that was what my mother told me I said, they said, you know, to my mother, would you like to have your little girl be in this movie that we're casting at Warner Brothers? And my mother said, you'd better ask her. And I said, if it wouldn't take too long, because I had a lot of dolls to take care of.
That's a good answer. That's very real.
I got a busy schedule. If I can squeeze it in, I'll do a film.
So I was not like eager to be on a larger scale of anything. It was enough what we had, what I experienced. But that was my first movie, Spencer's Mountain, with Henry Fonda and Maureen O'Hara. I played their daughter. And that actually came from the Earl Hamner novel that became The Waltons later.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Which I also appeared in later for their Thanksgiving special, many years later when I was about 14. And then the second movie was a movie called The Thrill of It All with Doris Day and James Garner. I played their daughter.
Just minor stars there.
Right.
And that was fun.
You didn't even have to audition for that one.
I did not have to audition because Norman Jewison apparently saw me in Spencer's Mountain, and he was the director, and said, she's perfect to play Doris Day's daughter.
Yeah, for sure.
And that was just a delight. And that was really fun, actually. It was a little more fun than Spencer's Mountain because I played the daughter of a doctor, and we also didn't have to travel at all. So to do Spencer's Mountain, we traveled to Wyoming, and I ended up with an asthma attack because it was like my first asthma attack. We were in the middle of the mountains, so with the altitudes and all the rest. And it was kind of plus the wardrobe, but we were a poor family. And so we had very scratchy costumes, whereas, much more comfortable to be Doris Day's daughter. and wear cute little outfits. And already I was into fashion, so that started ridiculously early. And then a movie called Good Neighbor Sam with Jack Lemmon, and I played his daughter.
Oh, amazing.
Hey, I have a question about that first film. Katrina and I heard that you had said that you had a fantastic memory as a child, and you still have a great memory. Maybe not as great, you said, as when you were a kid. So wasn't that a bit of a challenge with Henry Fonda, and why?
Well, I remembered everything at that point, everything. And all you had to do was, I guess my mother read the whole script to me once, and I remembered it.
Oh,
and
wow.
so when Henry Fonda went up on his lines, I told him what his lines were. And
he loved it.
I'm sure he was thrilled. And he said something like, well, wow, we don't have to have the script supervisor anymore. But he must not have taken it that badly, because he hired me years later. I did a play with him at it used to be the Huntington Hartford Theater. Then it became the Montalban Theater in Hollywood. We did Our Town.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, I was 12, and it was quite an experience. I played Jim Backus and Mildred Natwick's daughter.
Wow.
I mean, heavy-hitting, amazing actors.
Right.
Wow.
And we had John Randolph in the cast and Elizabeth Hartman. And, I mean, really amazing actors. It was a great theater experience.
You were really a working actress, like from 3 on.
Yeah,
It sounds like you
I
were just
was.
consistently going there.
Can I
through
ask
your
for one
years.
more story?
Got it.
Who played your older brother in that first movie?
James MacArthur.
And then what happened? We know these things,
Yeah.
but I don't know if our audience knows.
Oh, you did your research, huh?
Well, yes. You're fascinating.
Yeah.
So what happened with him?
Well, many years later, I went to see him in Front Page. He was doing something
Love
in
that
Palo
show.
Alto, and he was wonderful. And I went backstage to see him, and
We should say, by the way, he played your older brother in that first movie.
he played my older brother.
Right.
And he asked me out, and I wasn't dating anyone, and so we dated briefly, very briefly.
And he's a good kisser.
Yeah.
He was a good kisser. Yeah,
You heard it here.
All right.
Yeah.
You got it all out there, Jefferson. Good job. We're getting all the juicy gossip. It's perfect.
So for many of us, so The Sound of Music, there is something that I guess you're a veteran by the time you get to the auditions for Sound of Music, right?
Yeah, you could say that.
Could you tell us?
Then you had to audition again.
Yeah,
for Sound of
absolutely.
Music. Tell us about that.
Yes,
Yeah.
tell us about that, because you could sing and they said, come on in, okay. And what did you do?
So, well, the first was just a go-see audition. But then afterwards, as they went further, there was the singing audition. And when I went in for that, they asked me what I wanted to sing from the movie. And I said, what would you like me to sing? Because I know all the songs.
She's 5 at this
And
point.
did you know
5.
them before you even knew about this audition? Did you
I
already?
did.
You already knew the Sound
I
of
did.
Music. Like,
I knew.
by heart.
I knew everything because my father had brought home records of the
Musicals,
music
yeah.
because my family was very musical. So I pretty much sang all the musicals from super early on. Anyway, so they asked me what I wanted to sing, and I said 16 going on 17.
When you're 5.
Correct.
Cute.
Yeah.
And you said your siblings were about that age.
Well, my older brother was 16 years older than I was, so he was 21 then. My sister was 20, and yeah.
Yeah, so I relate to that. I just want you to know, because I'm the youngest of 11. And so I never saw I was just thought I was as old as my siblings.
Exactly.
So I just never, I was just, what are you talking about? Don't make me do little girl things. I'm on the road. And I also, very similarly to you, was the singer dancer, and I was the entertainer. I entertained everyone. They were my built-in audience, just like you said.
Yeah, but it's
so
exactly
true.
that.
Yeah.
And like it's where you don't need to take it outside the house.
No, you
because
don't.
they're there.
Yeah, very
You know?
fulfilling.
Yeah.
Yep. And they love you because you're so cute. And you really, everyone could see that
And you're a
for
natural,
you. I mean,
yeah.
amazing.
So many of us, The Sound of Music,
Right.
we were talking about this, Katrina, right beforehand, represents to us as audience members childhood, family, beautiful music,
Yeah.
and hope. So Katrina and I were curious to know this film, one of the most beloved films ever made, what it represents to you.
Well, there are two components to that. So there is the component of my film family. that became like a second family, and with whom I'm very close to this day. And then there was the historic family that I didn't think very much about at the time until I really met them, which was much later. Then it hit me. I mean, yes, I knew that it was based on this family and these people, but I had never met them. And it wasn't the time of the internet at that point early on where you couldn't just Google and see pictures of everybody whenever you wanted to. Sure. So it was many years later when I met them, and it was such an emotional thing to meet these historic figures, these people who had been through as much as they'd been through and been so brave and courageous. And I got to know more about the family, and I'm really in awe of them as people.
That's really amazing. So what would be some of your core memories of, let's say, Julie Andrews, the cast and crew, almost drowning on set? Lovely things like that.
Little things
so
like that.
A few little stories you have for this.
Well, the fun was things like rehearsing and recording, doing all the pre-recording of the music in a studio with musicians, live musicians and orchestra. So that was, the sound booth was very exciting for me. To this day, I love sound booths because of that. And the costume department was fascinating at 20th Century Fox. Swatches of fabric everywhere in drawings, and
no scratchy outfits on
no
this
scratchy.
film.
Well, I did not like the curtain costume outfit because it was overalls, and I felt like it made me look like a baby, and I hated overalls. But other than that, I loved my costumes, and it was so glamorous. The studio was the height of glamour at that point.
So what year were you shooting it then?
Well, we started in 64, and we're on the Fox lot doing all the pre-things first, and then we started filming there. Then we went to Salzburg for 3 months, and then we were in post for another 3, like rehearsal, altogether pretty much a year of our lives, which at that time is super formative. So we all became very knitted together, all our sound and music family.
It's really sweet. I mean, we were a bunch of kids. I mean,
No kidding.
And so, Julie was lovely, really lovely from the beginning and always. One of her traumatic stories and mine overlap because that is the Rowboat scene, which was probably the only thing our director ever did wrong in terms of making a mistake in judgment, because I couldn't swim, and it was known that I couldn't swim. And they had a perfectly acceptable little double person for me who did a stand-in, and they could have put her toward the back of the boat or whatever, kind of hidden her. Or maybe Gretl had a cold that day or something. Right. I don't know. But they decided at the last minute, Robert Wise asked me and said, would you do this? Blah, blah, blah. Well, of course, how was I going to say no?
Right.
I'm like, people are relying on me. I was a professional.
You should have said, I can't work under these conditions.
Correct. I didn't have a diva in me yet, and I wasn't a baby diva, so there was just there were no options at that point except to say yes.
Yes, of course.
Well, I was terrified. Yes. I was terrified.
Oh, you were terrified.
Absolutely terrified.
I'm going to watch that scene again. I'm going to look
and
at your face.
If you look at my face carefully, you'll see the fear.
Oh.
And but I was a team player, so. And there was someone, thank goodness, on shore to jump in and get me. The plan was to have Julie catch me. So her story is, which she has said on Oprah when we were on Oprah together, at the last minute, Robert Wise said, make sure you catch the little one because she can't swim. So,
by the way,
now you have a frightened Julie Andrews with the responsibility of catching a 5-year-old. And we did it once and it came out okay. And then we had to do it again because that wasn't good enough. So everybody got dried off.
And so you all got same day, did it dried again. Off, went back. Went
back and did it again. And this time poor Julie fell off the other side of the boat.
Oh, I noticed that. She goes back. And
it's a boat that rocks. Like there's room for error here, right?
Yeah.
Oh
and then I went under, and thankfully they had somebody to come to, jumped in and got me.
That's the take they kept.
That's the take they kept.
They kept that take.
Yeah, because you'll see a very abrupt cut where I'm then in Heather's arms. That's Louisa, Heather Menzies. You'll see there's a cut, then I'm in Louisa's arms. And I, to this day, and I was lucky enough while she was alive to tell Heather, who was just my little soulmate, that I think she saved my life, because I was so upset afterwards. I mean, we started filming again right after, but I was so upset, and she was just holding me and kind of squeezing me and hugging me, and I vomited lake water all over her, which may well have been a secondary drowning thing if it wasn't for Heather squeezing me so tightly. Wow. So, we didn't even know. Back in those days, nobody knew about secondary drowning. Right. And, like you could be not drown and then you drown in your bed.
Can you describe that for our audience? Yeah, what is secondary drowning?
Well, I found that out watching The Affair, that show. Remember that HBO show that was really good? And they ended up talking about, because I guess her child died in it, and I can't quite remember, but he died after he'd been rescued from secondary drowning. And I looked it up. I'm like, all of the lung alveola or whatever's in the lung fill with fluid. Everything gets filled with fluid, and then you suffocate later.
Oh, and people.
So do you know what? If somebody falls in water, make sure that they go immediately. And I mean, and they have
the water out.
What do what? Go to the hospital?
Well, go to the hospital, even if it looks like everybody's okay.
Okay.
Wow.
Good to know.
Wow, what stories. I'm sure you got so
Safety
many.
tip here.
Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Public service announcement.
So we know you went on to do many, many other roles. You've had a fantastic career, but there was a point, or was there a point, when you realized that the role of Gretl at 5 years old, that would have such a lasting impact. I mean, there are reunion shows, and it just resonates with the culture, even to today.
Yeah.
It does resonate, and I don't think any of us had any idea at the time. It was one of those things that built. Of course, what we knew at the time was that we were in a movie that was a mega hit. I started getting fan mail from all over the world. Wow. And, I started answering fan mail from all over the world. I remember getting something in one of those little... that there was that paper, that very thin oniony paper that was airmail paper. And it had a return address of Uruguay. I mean, there's a country called Uruguay. I was 6 years old. Yeah. So the world sort of opened up. We did know, yes, we were in a hit, but I mean, hit movies come and go. As time went on and the reunions became, more of an event, and as the years accrued, it just became obvious that this had become a piece of film history and so meaningful to so many people, which is what's fascinating.
Yeah. Multiple generations.
Really
I mean, younger
I think
generations
it's like
love
our family's
it too.
all-time favorite film.
Absolutely.
Just love it. There's just,
and we sell out the Hollywood Bowl. Sound of Music sells out the Hollywood Bowl every year. 5,000
do you go
people
to that
plus.
sing-along?
Periodically, I do. Yeah, and we all go on stage and wave at people, and but it's really interesting. And the other thing that's interesting is I don't talk about it. It looks like I talk about it because I'm here, but I mean, I don't generally talk about it in my life. But if anybody finds out that didn't know, they generally are like, oh, you didn't tell me that you were in Sound of Music. And I'm like, well, I don't lead with that, but okay. Then I've heard stories of people from all over the world telling me they were in a line in Iran, they were in a line in Russia, waiting to see the Sound of Music with their family in Eastern Europe, all over the world. It's like the strangest kind of international passport.
Wow,
I'm not kidding.
For sure. I mean, it's an instant, you're beloved, instantly, I think.
Instantly you become a family member. They tell you people tell you all about their families. It becomes the thing that opens up, and they tell you about their Christmases with their family, or their grandmother who died, or their, it's really interesting. Yeah.
When you touch someone's heart like that with your art, they feel like they know you, they welcome you in as if, hey, I know you. For sure. Familiarity, because you feel something. You gave a gift to humanity that way, I think.
For sure. And, and you went on to do other roles also that so many people remember and relate to in your, early teens and whatnot. I mean, obviously you kept acting. You kept working. So tell us a little bit about that. Let's cover that.
So I after Sound of Music, I did a lot of episodic television.
I have a question for you. Greg or Peter? Which one do you like better?
Well, in the show, it was Cyrano de Brady, right?
You might remember this episode, by the way.
A lot of people do.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, it was, I think I had just turned 14 or I was 13 and a half, and my braces had come off, so I was kind of excited about that. But I also, the other little part of that I remember vividly is I had developed kind of early, and they didn't want me to be too bombshelly, so wardrobe had to kind of knock out the curves as much as they could. So I had to go parade in front of the producers, making sure that I looked like not quite as
old
curvy,
or mature,
and, so that was one of the more embarrassing things at like 13, okay,
my
fine.
Gosh, interesting.
But it was, Peter fell in love with me and I fell in love with Greg, and he was,
it's just
very
comedy of
Cyrano
errors. Yes,
event.
I love that. I love that story. I was like, oh, what episode? I looked up. I'm like, I remember that episode. It's so funny. I mean, it was a very memorable one. It's really cute. But I continued. First was all the My Three Sons, Peyton Place, Lassie, FBI, kind of everything in that time. Family Affair. I was on that show a lot. Oh,
and with Anissa Jones and my friends,
Did
Kathy
you ever
Garver
steal Mrs. Beasley, or did you let her hold
No,
on?
I
that's
told
the Mrs.
her.
Beasley
That's
show.
the
I couldn't
Mrs.
remember
Beasley.
what show
That's
that was.
right.
Okay.
It was because
I'm showing my age, but I love that show.
I told her she was too old for dolls. So
my
I was the
goodness.
really awful girl who was telling her she
Who
was
loved
too
dolls?
old to
Hello?
play. I'm telling you.
That's acting. That's
that
acting, baby.
That was acting. That was a fun show, and I kept being invited back to be different people on that show. Nobody cared as much about continuity, I think. It was like, okay, but wasn't that the neighbor?
Oh my gosh, that's really
Yeah.
cute. Well, they like the way you work. They liked your, chops, and they're just like, yeah, have her back as another. We can trust her.
We can trust her to be someone else. Anyway, that continued, and then I got to, Brady Bunch. There's a lot missing, and then I did the Waltons Thanksgiving show.
Oh, nice.
And then I stopped for a little chunk of time because I had a very bad thing happen.
Hey, beautiful people. This is the part of our episode where we quickly remind you, if you're enjoying our podcast on YouTube, please take a moment right now and like this video and ring the bell. And if you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, be crazy amazing and write us a review. Very much appreciated. Now back to our conversation.
Basically, we didn't have words for what happened back then. There was no explanation of what happened to me, which was that someone had seen me. It was a producer and who did photography as well. His name was Patrick Curtis. He was a monster. But of course I didn't know that. And he basically groomed me. Again, the word grooming didn't exist back then.
Absolutely not.
Followed me, followed my career, had me take pictures, became my friend, quote unquote, until he raped me when I was 15. And I did not tell my parents anything, but they figured that something had happened. And I didn't want my father to know specifically because I was afraid he would go murder him.
Yeah.
And so I was in a really good school. There's a school called Marlborough here. It's a girls' school.
You were
It's
in.
great.
I was
It was
wondering
at
where you were going
Marlborough.
to school while you were doing all these roles, and they let you go in and out of these roles.
Things slowed down around the seventh grade. I mean,
all
they
right.
started to slow down. I did the play, the Art Town, then I did Brady Bunch and Waltons. But, there was a lot of time for school.
What a great school.
But
yeah.
at that point, we decided just to focus on school, which was a really safe
And so
thing
you never confronted. You just were like, okay, I'm going to piece out of this. This is getting a little too complicated for me.
Well, it was a trauma at that age.
Absolutely.
Right? And so I just was happy to focus on school. And I had wonderful friends, and I love school.
Yeah.
So school is like one of my favorite places on earth, was to be in a great school.
So you really
learn.
immersed yourself at Marlborough.
Yeah.
And
it
great,
was
if people don't know,
wonderful.
it's a wonderful all-girls school in Hancock Park, right?
Yeah.
That's here in LA.
One thing I wanted to ask was when you had said in an earlier interview, Katrina and I heard that you said that there was actually, before you got to middle school, there was bullying going on with you in elementary school.
right.
Even though you would think you would get the kid glove treatment Oh, no.
Oh, no kid glove.
Wow.
Back in those days,
Yeah.
there was no kid glove
You're on
treatment.
TV, let me punch you in the eye?
That's right. You know, you're a straight A student. You are myopic, right? Glasses. I was like nearsighted, so not really good at sports. I had asthma. I was a straight A student, and I was a little movie TV star. So yeah, take a number, right? There was a
Whoa,
line
that's
back
really
in those
interesting.
days. So it was brutal. And it wasn't until I got to Marlborough where there was so much supervision that kind of behavior couldn't take place.
Oh,
Thank
that's
God.
wonderful.
And I was ecstatic to be there. I
so that-
love Marlborough. I will
Yeah.
do anything for
Yeah.
Marlborough. I go to all kinds of reunions and
Oh,
all the
that's really
rest.
interesting.
But they saved me.
Well,
yeah.
that's when you really experienced the trauma while you were at Marlborough, and you were able to immerse yourself and get so navigating that. I was just thinking maybe we could just reflect a little bit on that and this idea. And I think you've spoken about it before about this. Well, and I think we had a brief conversation, but about the shame and how that was played into the part, and then how that changed over the years to where you are now talking about it, because you did not talk about it for so long. It was
Correct.
kept under wraps.
Just my girlfriends.
Right.
Yeah, and my
Wow.
sister.
Wow. Yes,
Yeah.
of course. And this is very normal for that time. Very normal. Now
Absolutely
we've had the
normal.
Me Too movement. Now we have the Epstein files. But can you just tell us a little bit about how your journey looked? Because I feel like when people hear these stories, it helps them get sooner to that place where you finally got to. You know?
100%.
You know,
and
that's where we
why.
want women to get to.
That's exactly where I want women
Yeah.
to get to. And that's why I talk about it. And that's why when the Me
Thank
Too
you.
movement came in, I also added my voice to it and my story. And since then, people have asked me, and I will always talk about it, because back at that time, the shame felt like it was our shame as women when something happened to us.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly I felt that way. I shouldn't have been there. I shouldn't have any number of things.
Well, look what she was
And
wearing, kind of thing.
all
right?
of those
all
things,
of that stuff
all
that-
of it.
that-
And then as time went on, right, I lived my life and put that behind me. I don't think I made the mental transformation. I just kind of shoved it away as much as I could until society started really changing and making it very obvious that this is not the way women should live. Like if some man does something terrible, we shouldn't just go, ha ha ha. I mean, no,
Yeah.
absolutely not. And then when Me Too exploded, it felt very, very liberating. And so that was kind of the trajectory of things. And since then, I think it's been a wonderful, transformative thing. Clearly, it's not, as long as you have men and women and men that are bad men, and as long as our men are not educated to properly either, because there is that component, I
Yes.
think, there will be things that
it goes on
happen that
today.
are terrible. But I think, one of the things that I found very, very striking was this one quote by Gisèle Pellicot, the French woman who had been through just unimaginable horrors. She said, shame needs to change sides. And I just found
Hear,
that
hear.
the
Yes.
best
Hear, hear.
thing.
That's
Yeah.
what's it's such a good point. It's like the women feel the shame and the guys just keep doing what they're doing. That kind of thing. It feels like that. And it is scary. And now, so when the Me Too movement came, when did you say, okay, I'm gonna tell this story now?
How I did it was like sitting there going, okay, that's it. Everybody's talking, my turn. So I posted a picture of myself that this person had taken when I was 14. And I said 14 might look like 18, but it's not. And this is a picture that the man who raped me took, et cetera. And that's,
That's how you came. That's how you
I
came.
came to
Okay.
tell the story.
Well, thank you for telling your story. It's a very hard
Absolutely.
thing to do.
And courageous.
Yes,
And
very
and Kat,
courageous.
as you were saying, that when you start to say it, and you were referencing this, then all of a sudden others feel empowered.
Yeah.
And they get courage from your courage, right?
Yeah.
So basically what happened was I stayed, at Marlborough and went to USC. I was going to focus on my education. Always wanted to get back to the business, but I wanted a big break. and I wanted to.
It was a good time to take it. High school, college, really get an education.
It was my father's. Nobody in my family had gone to college. My parents were immigrants.
You were the first?
I was the first, and my father's education had been interrupted, and his college education, because his parents needed him to go work restaurants or whatever, and it was the thing that he felt very sad about, and he never really had a chance to do it again because life just took him on a different path. Right. So it was his dream to see me graduate from university. But my father died my sophomore year of college.
You were 18,
I was 18,
oh,
exactly. And
it's really tough.
And so, but obviously it didn't stop my path. I was like, kind of had my nose to the grindstone until I graduated. I graduated with honors and all the rest, and didn't actually take enough time to mourn, I think. So I was in a pretty vulnerable condition when I went back to acting. And it was such a heyday for TNA TV, as we called it back then, and me being the blonde, bombshelly kind of person that I was. That's all I went out on. And I worked in Archie Bunker's place, a TV movie called Midnight Offerings, as a dumb blonde, whatever. And then there were all the horrible casting couch offers at the time. I was not mentally equipped for that.
What is a casting couch offer? They're like, we want to audition you, but really they're like, hey, baby, come on into my studio and let's get together. Is that what it is? Or what is that?
It's slightly more subtle. I mean, there's obviously that, but it's slightly more subtle than that.
Well,
Not that much.
They want deniability so they could say, oh, I didn't mean that.
Well, for example, I had a friend manager who somehow I ended up meeting some head of network with him. And then I was in Archie Bunker's place, and the head of network had called me and said, did a great job. It played really well. There's a lot that I think, we can do for you here. And I said, oh, that's great. And then I found out from my friend that he wanted a girlfriend. And what I would have gotten was my show, a show. Like, be the girlfriend, and here's your show.
Gonna get a show.
So here's the cost of getting your own show.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yikes.
And it was like, blech.
Yeah, blech.
Just like, blech. There's if I had wanted to be a paid sex worker, I would have been one.
Yeah.
And, no.
Yeah.
And there were other offers like that.
Wow.
And I got so depressed that I said, because I was 24 at that point, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go to Paris because I speak French and, I'm going to get an agent. And I love French movies, and I'm going to get an agent in Paris, and I'm going to work in French films.
This is
Okay,
very
And how 24-year-old, and what an idiot, right? Because I didn't think about things like a work permit or any of legalities of any of that. I was in full, I think I just needed a reality break from everything, and I love Paris. It's
beautiful.
And then I did what most 24-year-olds do in Paris in springtime, and I fell in love, madly in love. So that was with Philippe, who we married, and then we had our son, Eric. We ended up moving to New York. I worked in all my children before I had Eric, and then I had my son, Eric.
Okay, so that's a perfect place to be, because what we love to do in this podcast is hear about important moments that we all have, the ones that just completely change the trajectory of what we think our life is going to be. And I think that started perhaps when you became a mom. So can you tell us a little bit about, and that is kind of leading us to why you're on this podcast for us, because you are a crazy, amazing human, and something so beautiful came out of this situation.
Well, my wonderful, beautiful son was born. Philippe and I had waited, and when it was exactly the right time, we thought we had Eric.
Wow.
And then 3 weeks after he was born, he got incredibly sick. And we rushed him to the doctor's office, and the doctor said, it's probably meningitis. What?
Yeah, we don't know what that is.
And it turns out that there actually was an epidemic of meningitis, viral meningitis in New York from January 1991 to, I think it's August 91.
Wow.
And clearly they'd had meningitis in the practice. So just to back up a tiny bit, we'd gone for a well baby visit when Eric was 3 weeks, perfect baby, 3 weeks old, went for the well baby visit. 3 days later, he had meningitis. The doctor came in and did some ridiculous thing back in those days. Didn't wash his hands. Eric was crying. He stuck his thumb in Eric's mouth. Unsurprisingly, next thing we know, we're in the hospital. And a few days into it, it was sort of status quo. The nurse said, why don't you two go and get some rest? Because you've been here nonstop, me and Philippe. And I said, to Philippe, no, you go. Somebody has to be here for sure. A few minutes later, no kidding, Eric just started seizing. This tiny little body just started like practically levitating with seizures. And, I ran screaming for the doctor, and, the rest is history. Obviously, having seen what I saw, it was hard to not imagine that I didn't want to acknowledge it, and nobody could tell me anything at the time. It was hard not to have seen that if I hadn't been there, first of all, he either would have died or would have been in a pretty worse state. And, that there's a little tiny infant brain. So, how is it going to be okay from that? But miraculously, he did really, really well. But I deep down kind of knew what I'd seen. So worked a lot with him with everything, started speech therapy really early because he didn't start speaking. He started walking and running and super coordinated and amazing, but speech and visual awareness was a little bit off. He could see really well, but he didn't use central vision. There were a lot of red flags. But during that very bizarre period of time, till he was six, I think, people would either tell me, he's autistic and you're in denial, or he's deaf and you're in denial, or I had his hearing tested. I knew what I was looking at. And finally, in the end, I took him, he had neurologists, but I took him to this one really lovely neurologist who said, I don't think you'll see damage. And because look at him, he's, perfect looking and he's, coordinated and all the rest. But sure enough, there was quite a bit of damage.
Did they do an MRI of his brain? And then they saw damage.
And then the neurologist said, whatever you're doing, keep doing it because he looks amazing for what's happened. And so I just took that as my, lesson of however much I'd been fighting with people about all the idiotic things they were saying. Another one was, you're really spoiling him, blah, blah, blah. No. Everything in the universe. And that was very tough because I'm not a person who likes fighting with people. I wouldn't have ever wanted to be like a trial lawyer or anything else, like confrontation. No. Yeah. And I'm a perennial people pleaser on top of it. And suddenly I had to be this person who was using my voice in a different way and to protect my son who didn't have one.
Because everyone wants to, he didn't have one. Everyone wants to weigh in on what you're supposed to be doing as a mother, that you're missing something because maybe on their good side is they're trying to help solve the situation. I'm going to help you. So that really made you even stronger than you were.
It made me very strong.
Did you feel, a lot of parents of special needs children have told me that they feel extremely alone. They don't know anybody who's going through this. Did you experience that too?
I felt totally alone, just totally alone. And completely misunderstood in that period of time. I'm very lucky. I have really close girlfriends, but it was tough even for my family to understand what was going on. And it did end up altering my relationship with Philippe. We broke up, and we had a period of time of his not really understanding because it was his grief too. Mm-hmm. What we needed was really good counseling, which actually didn't exist. Mm-hmm. We didn't luck into somebody who had any sensitivity for this. And Philippe and I are great friends now, and he's a wonderful father.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that.
we both acknowledge we didn't. First of all, we were alone on the East Coast. My family didn't live there. His family didn't live there, so we had no support.
Yeah,
and
that's
Eric,
really tough.
I don't think Eric slept a night till he was 11.
Didn't sleep through the night until he was 11.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I was exhausted.
Wow. Yes.
And I didn't trust leaving him with anyone because of how sensitive he was to everything. So it was hell. And it got better, though.
Okay.
It got better. I fought through it. It took a long time to get better. I had to fight schools, too. That's what, it seemed to me once we had this diagnosis, then people might actually listen to me periodically when I told them what we needed to do, since no one was really a developmental expert at that point. The diagnosis was traumatic brain injury.
Okay.
But everybody's brain is different.
Yeah, so
and everybody's traumatic brain injury is different. Some people have it for their physical, right? Some people have a physical deficit.
Disability.
Some people have, an emotional. I mean, they're as specific as the brain is. Every brain damage is also
very specific.
Wow, that's interesting.
Okay, so you were saying it was hard, you felt alone, there wasn't even counseling for that, and you were entering into this world that other families were in, but you were maybe trying to connect or find and help get him an education and all of this that you had to navigate.
Well, we were at the time living in Connecticut, which unless it's changed drastically from when we lived there, I heartily will recommend that any parent who has a disabled child not live in Connecticut.
Wow.
Stay away.
They don't. Okay. So then but instead of your life shrinking, you expanded it. And I think it was once you were through school when you started your foundation and spearhead. I think you moved to.
There's a little bit of a thing. Eventually, I left.
Yeah.
So, given frankly no decent options whatsoever, when Eric was 15 and I really couldn't take it anymore. It was just the worst. We were at our worst. And my mother had just died of pancreatic cancer. So it was like, okay, I was like, things need to get better. So we moved back to California, and I heard from my friends in the special needs community that we needed to go to Malibu High School because there was a teacher there named Lisa Zalagi who was an angel. And I would love her.
Okay.
Wow. And so I set up a meeting. I walked into her classroom, and it changed our lives instantly. Wow. Because there was a person who is this amazing woman who's become truly a soul sister, who just welcomed Eric, welcomed all the input I had, actually didn't even need it because that's how she ran her classroom. She ran her classroom the way I wanted Eric's experience to be. She herself was a special needs mother, and she's not only brilliant, but all heart.
Wow.
And suddenly we were at home, and that was it. And I think I felt like every parent in that little classroom, that like wherever Lisa went was where we would go. And so as the kids started to get older, we obviously needed to find something. The young people age out at 21 from special ed.
They do?
They do. So they can stay within the public school system till 21. And after that,
where do they go?
Where do they go? Yeah. So we started looking because Lisa's dream was to start her own program. And to do that, we had to start a foundation. But we decided to explore what options there were, because none of us really knew what we were doing.
Yeah, what would it look like?
Except for Lisa. Lisa had some awareness, but I mean, still, she'd never started a day program like that.
Adults.
So we went, this little group of incredibly courageous, wonderful parents, and we went together to look at as many programs as we could. Mostly we were profoundly depressed after, because there was nothing that really helped kids on the more severe end of the spectrum. It gave them what we wanted: music and art and yoga and community and everything, and gave them an open, lovely world, not a sequestered one, not a limited one.
A lot of people ship them somewhere and kind of lock them away.
Yeah, some place for them to go and be with others.
So then we started our own. And so we're in our 12th year of the program. It's called Creative Steps. We have 3 locations. We serve 80 young adults, but our waiting list is 175.
And probably would be more if people knew about it being there. So so you have a lot of need. You have
a lot of need.
Yeah,
it's a gigantic need
when you can't.
It really is. And that's Lisa who takes it. I mean, because this was her dream. And of course, our dream to help her have her dream. And of course, everything I want for my son. So we've worked diligently to build this. But yeah, it's got to be bigger. It has to address more. You know, when we first had our very beginning meeting, Lisa sent an email out to other special needs parents to kind of get a head count. How many people would be interested in doing this? There was not one space to park for miles pretty much around the house that we went to. That room was so packed full of people. And that little wonderful group of parents and I looked at one another and were like, oh my God, the need is that big.
Yeah.
Right.
So Lisa did a brilliant job. Everyone connected has done, you know, such an amazing job on everything. We're a very recommended program to the extent that there's a wait list of 175, you know, and that's painful to think about.
So there's the, just to get it straight, there's the Aurelia Foundation that's like the umbrella to Creative Steps is the program. So I want our listeners to know how this is. Tell us about how Aurelia, the name came.
Well, Aurelia, I was the first I was the first president of our foundation. That was the foundation that we created to create our day program later. And everybody went around the room and basically was like, well, what do you want to call it? What should we name it? And so because we're like sisters and brothers in that little group, you know, so you're the president, what do you want to name it? And I'm like, I don't know. You know, what about Aurelia? Because my mother's name was Aurelia, and it means golden light in Greek.
Oh, I love it.
Wow.
And that's how we came to Aurelia.
Beautiful.
That is beautiful.
The Aurelia
so
Foundation.
can you tell us, since you've been up and running, and I'm sure there are some amazing examples and moments, but could you just pick a few maybe to share with our audience what you've seen happen with some of these lovely humans who have aged out of the system, but now you are stepping into that gap through creative steps. And it made you think, you know what, this is exactly why I do this.
Well, there isn't a day that goes by that I don't think that, given how all the loveliness of these young people and the fact that many of them would have no place to go. That was fun.
Yeah.
You know, one day I had to drop by, I don't know for what reason, and it was music. And of course, my son took one look at me and grabbed me to dance with him. Aww. So, you know, of course, we started dancing. And I looked around the room and everybody was dancing. And even the young adults that were in wheelchairs that had limited movement were moving to the music. And God, that was just one of those moments. It's like, and it's always that way. Or Lisa will take her guitar out and start playing one of her, and she's got a beautiful singing voice too, and sing one of her songs. And it's just, it's magic. So, you know, what has been really hard is to see how people underestimate or dismiss the intrinsic humanity of our young adults.
And the uniqueness, right?
Yes.
You have
And
said...
the specific,
Yes.
Yeah, we've heard you say that people look at special needs folks and say, oh, they're all lumped in one category. But you have said that they're as unique as anybody else.
Absolutely. And it's hard for me to believe that people wouldn't see that, right? That's a specific human. The disability is a separate kind of thing. That person has like DNA from both their parents. They have things they love. They have things they don't like. And that's what I kind of felt like I was hitting my head against a wall, trying to express the uniqueness of Eric's personality. Eric takes after me. Eric is a sing and dance man.
Wow.
You know,
That's so
you know, put some music on,
great.
You know, he'll be dancing and he'll be singing. And, you know, even though he can't speak, I mean, he has very limited words. He can say hi and he can say Mimi, which is what he calls me, and a few other things. It's not reliable. But so the songs won't have words, but they'll have tunes.
Yeah, melody.
And, you know, but he's not like another young adult who loves art, who will express themselves with art, even though they're nonverbal. Or like one of our lovely young people has an incredible pianist. She was not trained. Wow. You sing a song, she can play it, and she's almost completely visually impaired.
Wow.
And, you know, with a complicated genetic disorder, but there's this gift. So we have to look for these preferences and gifts and individuality and everything, and not just see disability.
Absolutely. Yeah. We had another guest on the podcast for Angel City Sports, which, have you ever heard of Angel City Sports? They are for physical disabilities, and they have a whole sports program because so many kids express themselves through sports. For them, that teamwork, that camaraderie, and they have the kids in the wheelchair and everything. They're incredible people as well. The Freck family who started that. So there are more things now, and this is great to know for when, and there's mental disability. I don't know what you call that, a learning disability perhaps, and then a physical disability. Do you guys take both there, or is it mainly?
We are moderate to severe.
Moderate to severe, what kind of disability?
Disabilities.
Any
period.
disability.
Yes.
Well, you all need to know the Angel City Sports people and vice versa. That's great because they're always helping people like that. And I love it. So these kinds of organizations, when you start them, do you have any words of advice for people who might be listening or trying to do something or want to do something like this for some area that they see a need?
If it has to be done, you have to do it.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
And obviously the more you're surrounded by people who have complementary information and knowledge, build a team and do it.
Yeah.
We had a very good team. We have a lawyer, an incredibly brilliant lawyer who's one of our parents, someone else who was an accountant, someone else so everybody had their different skill sets. And even if they didn't have a skill set, they figured it out.
Yeah.
One of our mothers, who was unbelievable, had never planned, none of us had planned a gala, because we have a gala, generally speaking, our fundraiser about once a year. And the first year we did it, we sat in Linda's house and we looked at one another and said, how do you do a gala? None of us had really done it, but we did it that year. But Linda spearheaded it, and she became like the ultimate gala chair. I know she would love to step down, but she's too brilliant at it.
No, it's so much work, right?
When
It's
you're
a
that
lot.
good.
It's a lot
And
to
she's
do.
just so good. Yeah. And that wasn't her experience before. So, I think if we challenge ourselves and we're motivated, we can do many things we had no idea we could do.
Well, you certainly have proven that to be true.
Yeah.
What would you say, since we're asking for advice, what would you say about parents maybe who feel like it's all my fault that this happened? I feel shame. I feel like, that I did something wrong. What would you say to parents who are going down that mental rabbit hole?
It's not helpful. It's definitely not a helpful mindset. Everybody has a different journey coming to this. Sometimes you come upon it the way we did, which is I took him to a very well-respected doctor's office that had a doctor that was completely irresponsible. As much as I feel horrible about everything, I can't blame myself for that. It was a well-respected person, etc. Nothing to be done. There's a whole spectrum of experience in all of this, with a possibility of blaming oneself in different ways. But it's not helpful. Whatever it is, that however you come to that, it won't help the situation. Deal with it. Go see actually a good therapist about it. Yeah. And, as opposed to a bad one, and try to move forward through it.
That's great advice.
That's great advice. Okay, so I just want to talk a little bit why we met before this podcast wraps up. So we have a mutual friend, Hershey Felder, who's incredible. And as a matter of fact, his wife, Kym Campbell, was on the podcast. I don't know if you know that.
Oh, I didn't know that.
But you met Kym.
Yes,
know Kym.
Absolutely.
And she's an amazing icon of a leader, incredible woman. She was our episode 38. So tell me a little bit about how you met Hershey.
Well, Hershey is I will just say we agree completely. Hershey's a wonderful friend to have. He is
incredible,
one of the most brilliant human
pianist,
beings
Hershey Felder.
ever. And it's a long story how we became friends, but we first met in Venice, Italy, where he rescued me and my husband with a water taxi because we were lost on our way to see him. We had been going around in circles in Venice, which is what people often do. Yeah. And the GPS on the phone didn't work. And finally we're like, Hershey, and he was writing an opera at the same time. Like, sorry to bother you, but we started out at Accademia Museum, but we can't find you. So he came and got us down some little canal. And he was standing in the prow of the water taxi looking very Wagnerian.
That is so funny.
No kidding. kidding.
Did he have a cape?
Just about, almost. It's just missing the cape. And we became like really close from that point on. And Hershey's a big Sound of Music fan too. And so he asked me at one point, he was in Los Angeles doing a show, and he said, would you like to come to Teatro Nicolini? We'll show Sound of Music. You can do a Q&A, etc. And I said, sure, but would you like me to see if I can get my Sound of Music siblings to come? And so there we all went to Florence,
in Florence,
staying in his incredible castello. But before then, while we were planning, in the planning stages, I talked to Hershey. I'm like, you know what? It's the 60th anniversary of The Sound of Music. We don't really have a great documentary of us and our friendship and our relationships and everything. What are your thoughts? And he said, well, let's just make one. And so we
sounds like him.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
So we've just been in the process of filming. We filmed in Florence, then we filmed in Salzburg a few months later when we had a big 60th Sound of Music reunion there.
Yeah, just last year,
great.
Right?
And I'm going to be in Salzburg again with Hershey doing some more filming. So we're working on this.
And singing.
Fantastic.
So can you tell, because you're obviously a go-getter, creative soul, can you tell us about some of the other creative projects you're currently involved with, like The Sound of Music 2, The Return of Gretl, something like that?
I did watch a little bit of your on YouTube, Bouncing Back.
Bouncing Back.
Yes. And the Holocaust survivor that you
Yes.
interviewed there. And it reminded me, it was a little bit Crazy Amazing Humans, like, we're very similar, this resilience, this
Totally
inspiring person.
You know, when we spoke about doing this, I wanted you to look at Bouncing Back because some years ago, I created this show, Bouncing Back, about resilience. And we'd had a couple of really interesting psychologists that were resilience experts involved. And the first interview I did was with this amazing Holocaust survivor named Edith Eva Eger. And the show aired on JLTV. But it was hard for us to sell a TV show on, we're stuck. We heard things like, well, it's too positive.
Yeah.
But which is really terrible because we need positivity desperately, and we need role models, and we need to watch really brave people.
We need to hear good stories about, that people are doing brave, good things
and
for
resilience,
others.
absolutely.
Absolutely.
Because it's key.
When they hear good things happening and good things are coming of it, they say, I want to do that. And they want to do that in their own community. And we always love that story about Mother Teresa, who had someone write to her saying, I'm saving up my money to come help you there in Calcutta, and I just want you to know I'm on my way. And she said, don't come here, find your own Calcutta. Yeah. Do something where you are, in your own backyard, in your own neighborhood,
Absolutely.
and stuff like that. So when people hear these kinds of positive, like Bouncing Back, like the stories we tell, like you just told us on Crazy Amazing Humans, it does help people decide, hey, I want to do something like that too. And so it is inspiring. So just to follow up with your foundation one more time, I just want to make sure everybody knows where to find you. I did read that there's like some fundraisers coming up on the comedy night you all are having, and Jay Leno is signed on to that.
Every year.
Oh, he does it every year?
Every year.
Oh.
He is amazing.
Wow.
Absolutely.
And what, is he friends with Bobby Collins? Do they have an interest in
he's friends with Bobby Collins.
Okay.
And so every year we use his club, and
that's great.
He does a set, and Ray Romano was there last year.
Oh, nice.
So we're so appreciative of all of that.
That's beautiful.
Absolutely.
That's great. You've got good stuff happening there, and you have a golf classic as well. So tell us on Instagram or on
creativesteps.org.
Okay.
And I don't think we're that great with our social media yet. We do have an Instagram. It's just Creative Steps.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Creative Steps. Because you were on it. They featured you the other day. I got to see that post. Yeah. Okay, very cool. So Creative Steps, everybody.
At Crazy Amazing Humans, we often leave our listeners with a simple challenge meant to make the world a better place around them. And so today we're wondering, what is one small thing our listeners could do to make life more inclusive for those with disabilities in their own communities?
Or even just when they're walking down the street and they see someone, or
that's really what I was thinking. Don't look away. Smile. It's a little thing, but smile. Smile at the caregiver, smile at the person with the disability. Just help them feel like the world's a friendly place.
I love that.
That's beautiful.
It's a
Thank
beautiful
you.
thing. And simple things can make such a difference.
Absolutely.
You never know. You might take someone off guard because sometimes it's very intense if someone's caregiving, and you might smile at them. They might not smile back. A lot of us don't want to smile because sometimes we think they won't smile back or something. But I really do think what you're saying, it makes a big difference. Even if they don't smile back, don't stop smiling at people like that, because they will feel that later. They might be in a moment. Right
Totally.
then,
Totally.
I always remind myself of that because I'm overly friendly, and not always do people smile or say hi back. And I'm like, that's okay. It's going to hit them later. They're caught up. So anyways, so that's what we just want to thank you so much for being on the podcast and sharing your story with us.
It's
Kym,
my
thank
pleasure.
You so much. You're serving all these families. You've just expanded your whole life in so many ways. You have such an incredible story from age of 0. Starting at 3, something that none of us maybe ever can reach. That is incredible. And I just want to thank all of our listeners listening right now. Thanks for listening to this amazing podcast and listening to Kym's story, which is, I think, important for everyone to hear. And so, Kym Karath, you are crazy amazing.
I want you to feel, I want you to feel something crazy, crazy amazing.
If you have any questions or comments about today's episode, please make sure to write us at crazyamazinghumans@gmail.com.